I'm going to be sharing 10 advanced tips for any skill level in Arc Raiders. These are going to be simple yet impactful for any type of player. All I ask in return is for you to like and subscribe. I'm going to be spewing a bunch of tips and tricks, so if you don't learn something today, I failed. So let's begin with the first tip. This one's going to be a bit controversial, but if you haven't already, Expedition. If you don't know what an Expedition is, it's basically resetting your account. But it permanently increases your stash capacity by 12 and you get up to 5 skill points. I am going to be making a video on expeditioning and all the latest information. Now imagine every time an expedition comes around, you do it and then you keep stacking your stash capacity and the amount of skill points you're getting. Now this is one that a lot of console players don't do, but maybe if you're on PC you haven't done this already, but it's increasing your FOV. The bigger your field of view, the more information you're getting, and you can peek around cover safely from a further distance. So just do that real quick. And whilst you're in the settings, you might as well change your reticle to one that you prefer. So just experiment with one that you prefer. And the last settings tip is to turn off motion blur. Now let's move on to PvP. Now obviously you're going to be bumping into people whilst you're playing the game, so hopefully these tips help you when you encounter a player. If you're trying to be friendly, just tell them to put away their weapon so they can't just instantly shoot you as soon as they see you. Now if they do decide to shoot you, or if they don't put away a weapon, at least you know that they're hostile. And when they do pull out their weapon, you have like a split second to react. That's been useful for me, so hopefully that's useful for you. Moving on. If you ever meet someone that does sound suspicious, don't be afraid to shoot. I see so many people dying just because they don't want to be hostile. Just remember, this is a game and people do whatever they want, so just don't fall for the trap. If they sound suspicious, just walk away or kill them. I know that's common sense, but it's good to be reminded. Another thing is, when you enter a building that you have no information on, use the emote wheel and set it to loud, so everyone in the vicinity can hear you. This could be a double-edged sword, because if they're hostile, they'll shoot you, and if you're friendly, they'll be friendly back. So maybe do this when you have bad loot, so you don't lose your high-quality loot. And if you didn't somehow know, yes, headshots multiply your damage in this game, and shooting the lower limbs reduce your damage compared to shooting the torso and the head. So just mess around with your settings to get comfortable with your sensitivity. We're going to be moving on, so my last piece of advice on this topic is, when picking a map, just remember that some maps are more PvP dominated. For example, Stellar Montes and Buried City. For me, these maps have way more PvP encounters, so just be wary of that when picking these maps. Obviously, PvP happens on every map, but these ones have an increased chance. And if you made it up to here in the video, like. Now let's move on to getting money, loot, and XP. Now first off, the Matriarch and Queen event are perfect for XP. You can farm damage, you can stay on the surface for a longer period of time, and you can team up with a bunch of people to just farm damage. And if you didn't know, damage on arcs give you so much XP. So bringing a gun like the Osprey or Renegade, have good damage output and don't eat through ammo. So if you're struggling to level up or you just want to get to level 75 faster, just try to snipe the Queen and Matriarch events, and make sure to loot all the parts so you get extra XP for that. And by the time you defeat it, you'll be close to the end of the timer, so your time for staying on the surface will be longer and you get XP correlating to that. Just be careful, if you're the only one fighting the Queen or Matriarch, it might kill you because all its attention is focused on you. Now if you're lucky enough to get the Matriarch or Queen reactor, you can craft high rarity weapons like the Jupiter, Equalizer, or Aphelion if you have the blueprint. Then you can start farming Rocketeers, Leapers, and Bastions, and sell their parts whilst getting arc motion cores, which I think you can make launcher ammo with, and start farming ammo for the Hullcracker, which is great for taking out arcs, and isn't as rare as the legendary weapons. Then you can start going on night raids to farm XP whilst getting money, which is great when you don't have much time to play the game. So yeah, I think that's pretty useful, and if you didn't think that was useful, like and subscribe. Now the final part of the video is about movement. This is a key part of the game, you're going to be moving all the time, so you might as well get good at it. Now obviously manage your stamina, you never want to run out of stamina, but most importantly is maxing out your stamina from the skill tree. That should be a given. Now if you're going on a long journey, say you're fighting the Queen or Matriarch, you want to pack a lot of adrenaline shots. These are heavily slept on. Popping one of these give you infinite stamina for 10 seconds, and they're super easy to make. This could help you cover bigger distances, saving time and getting that extra bit of damage in. Also, if you're in a pickle, then you can pop one of these and just run away. Don't worry, I got more tips about movement, and another one is, but before I tell you this, like and subscribe because I know you haven't done it. Okay, enough of that, but when you're in a fight, when you're closing the distance, let's say you throw a smoke grenade or you're just running blindly in, let's say they're behind a wall or behind a piece of cover, when you're crossing that, always jump or slide. No one expects this, especially the jumping one. Just watch out, when you're jumping, your reticle goes really wide, but it shouldn't be much of an issue if they're close to the wall that you just crossed. But doing that could dodge like an extra 2 or 3 bullets, helping you win the fight. I know that's a mix between PvP and movement, but it's okay. Now, I'm sure most people know this, but when you're falling from a moderate height, you can actually time the roll button to negate all damage. This is quite handy because when you take fall damage, your guy gets stuck in the stagger animation. So your guy goes into like a recovery animation where you're super vulnerable. And depending on the fall, the longer it is. So if someone's blindly chasing you, you can jump down, time the roll, and if they don't time it correctly, they'll be stuck in a stagger animation where you can just start opening fire and try kill them. No, this does not work on Leapers, Bastions, or any arcs. So don't make that mistake or you might be killed. Now here's some random advanced tips that I'm sure will help you. First off, light impact grenades are really good. They're super cheap and they do a lot of damage, even though it says they only do around 20 to 30. I can't remember off the top of my head. Since bigger arcs have multiple limbs, the splash damage on the light impact grenade hits multiple parts of the arc, doing multiple damage. So it acts as a multiplier. For example, the leaper, you can throw it at the eye and it might splash onto its legs. Now the main selling point of the light impact grenades is it's super cheap to make and buy. Now if you slept on the light impact grenades, I recommend you to try them. Another underrated tip is using the kettle and stitcher. Now the kettle in my opinion is heavily slept on. In PvP, it absolutely shreds. Its fire rate is dependent on how fast you can click the trigger button, depending on if you're playing on console or PC, and the stitcher has crazy fire rate, and they're both super easy to get, being common weapons. And the kettle's not half bad at killing arcs, obviously not the bigger ones. And since they're just common weapons, they're super easy to upgrade. So watch out, if you're using a level 1 kettle, the reload animation is crazy long. That takes actual years to reload. But it makes sense, it is just a common weapon. And if you're struggling finding this somehow, you have a pretty high chance of going on a free loadout and getting it. That goes for both weapons. Now a thing most people don't know is that when you kill a leaper, its specific part, the leaper post unit, can actually be thrown, doing 100 damage and having a pretty big radius. Now my favorite use for this is when the matriarch opens its core. If you don't know what the core is or what it looks like, it's the red thing in the middle. But basically when it opens it, you can throw it in there. And since it has such a big radius, it gets a big chunk of damage. It shouldn't be too hard to find because the matriarch actually spawns in leapers. And sometimes you find people fighting it. So you can quickly take the leaper part and throw it at the matriarch once it opens up. That sounds really sus. Now another thing that gets a lot of people killed is not putting suppressors on their weapon. If you're farming trials are the weekly things that reset. And also get 3 stars on your trial to get a chance of a blueprint. But back to what I was saying, if you're doing trials like destroying flying arcs or rocketeers or whatever, putting a suppressor on your weapon makes it much harder for people to track you down. And since most people are doing their trials on night raid, I believe that's a bit more aggressive. So when people hear a bunch of gunshots, people are attracted to that and it could get you killed. This has happened to me multiple times, so just be wary about this. Another thing I wish I was told sooner is to max out my stash size. After every match, my stash is completely full. Once you max it out, this problem won't really go away. You'll still be wishing you had more space. That's why I recommended at the start of the video to Expedition, so you can get that permanent plus 12 stash upgrade. But maxing out your stash allows you to hang on to better rarity weapon, heals, and grenades. Also, another thing a lot of players don't do is that they hoard weapons but they don't upgrade them. So the materials take up a lot of space in their stash, where they should just invest it into upgrading their weapon so they clear up more space, so they can get even more loot. So if you've got like an anvil or hoe cracker or any other weapon, I normally do this with weapons that are uncommon and above. I will just upgrade them to level 4 so I can clear up some space in my stash and also upgrade my weapons. And especially upgrade weapons that increase their fire rate once you upgrade them. For example, the Renegade, that's a blue weapon. When you upgrade it, its fire rate actually increases, increasing its DPS. Same with the Venator. Now we're reaching the end of the video, so if you guys enjoyed, please like and subscribe. And I tried to pick tips and advice that weren't super common and super generic. I picked tips that I genuinely wish someone told me when I start the game. So hopefully it helped you. At least one of these tips you probably haven't heard before. And if you have, you're lying, so But yeah, good luck if you're playing Arc Raiders. I will be making more tips and tricks video, and I will be making a video on the expeditions. The details about that, and every time an update comes out, I will be covering it. So if that sounds good, subscribe, and if you're gonna subscribe, you might as well like the video and stop disliking my videos.